My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have on someone that I've seen many, many times on the gridiron, also on the basketball court as well. Erik Suzio. He's a basketball player, lacrosse player, and football player as well. Suze, great to be able to have you on the podcast.
No, I'm excited to finally be on it after all the ones I've watched.
You know, it's one of those things where I've had so many Falcons players, from Daniels, who was the first one. Then I had Jamie, Bokikio. Now I have you. Also had another player as well for baseball. But it's awesome to be able to have the St. Paul athletes on here. It's always fun.
Yeah, it is. We always talk about it. I grew up with Ryan. We've been friends since we were born, so it was kind of fun to see him on it. And then Jamie's obviously one of my closest friends from all the sports, and it was good to see them be on it. You know, they looked happy, so it looks fun.
And Jamie, obviously, I call him walking bucket because I feel like it's just a bucket
Yeah.
all the time.
Even this, whatever sport he plays, he's good at. That's how their whole family is. His little sister is one of the best athletes I've ever seen. His little brother's a beast. His youngest sister plays 11U boys baseball, and she's like 8.
That's
The whole
impressive.
it's from the parents down.
It's funny. I remember after I think it was the Holy Cross game. I think it was his brother or his brother's sister were shooting, and they were draining shots. And I looked at Jamie. Yeah, I looked at Jamie and I was like, "Are they better than you?"
They're all a bunch of athletes. They're all good kids too, which is nice.
Exactly. But back to why I have you on here. Obviously, you being a multi-sport athlete, I feel like is a rarity, at least in Connecticut, for various reasons. But to have 3 sports is, I think, even more rare. Before we get into that, I want to go back to, with you being the first time on here, I always ask the guests, making their first appearance, how did their sport find you? Well, for you, how did, football, basketball, and lacrosse, how did they find you?
So my dad, lacrosse, will start with that one because that was the one I think I kind of found the love for first. And obviously I'm from Meriden. Lacrosse is not big there at all. It's a football town. And my dad grew up and he was the only one in the area that played lacrosse. So he had to go out of school, like different out of town schools, out of town leagues. And he kind of he didn't push it on me at all, but he kind of showed me the sport to see if I could find a love for it. And that was going to Cheshire a lot for camps and stuff. And that kind of grew from there. And then I played youth growing up in Berlin. So I used to travel to Berlin to play there. And then basketball, I was kind of just the tallest kid in my grade always. Just that kind of, hey, want to play basketball? And then I played soccer all growing up until freshman year of high school. And I was a goalie. And then, because my mom didn't want me to play contact football yet. And then I went to St. Paul and I played, and I'm glad I made that choice to play.
It makes sense now that you mentioned soccer as well, because when my partner and I were broadcasting the St. Paul games, or even when I would watch you away from ATR, when I was doing TV, I would always see, and it's a rarity for a player as young as you are and as big as you are height wise, to be able to move almost like you're 5'2", 5'3". Like, it's one of those things. And now that you mentioned soccer and lacrosse, like you were telling me, going vertically, horizontally, that kind of stuff really plays into not just football, but just the 3 sports that you played, and then soccer up until your freshman year.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing I like to focus on whenever I'm taking time in the offseason to work on something is you can always get quicker because there's always going to be someone faster. Whether that's in basketball and you can switch on to a guard, or in football and you need to close the distance, or lacrosse when you're guarding someone a little bit quicker than you. It's going to be important that you can control your speed, where I got blessed with size. So I'm not going to just let that be what I'm resting on, where I can get better at other things that I can control.
As you were growing up before you got to St. Paul, was it always, or was it lacrosse was the main sport, or was it where as you grew older, lacrosse was 1 and then maybe 2, football was 1, and so on and so forth? Did it ever change like that?
So growing up, I always just played basketball for my school team. I was never an AU or a travel ball kid. And I'd play at the park or outside of my hoop. And then I'd play lacrosse in the fall when I could, in the winter when I could, in the summer, in the spring. It was always lacrosse, then basketball. And then I was the type of kid that wore lacrosse cleats for soccer. And when I found out I couldn't do that, I was kind of annoyed. But soccer was just played for the school, just cardio basically. So it always was kind of lacrosse.
Okay. Interesting. See, that's one of those things where it seems like lacrosse, as you said, your dad had the attraction, and then it seemed like, and he didn't push it on you, but it kind of bled to you where you started to fall in love with it as well.
Yes.
Now, as I asked Jamie and the other St. Paul players I've had on here, St. Paul, what attracted you to the Falcons?
So obviously being from Meriden Lacrosse, there's really two options, and it's St. Paul or Xavier. And then my sister had gone to St. Paul and loved it. And a lot of her friends that I was close with loved it, played lacrosse there, played football there. And that's why I've been going to the games since as long as I can remember. Like from when St. Paul lacrosse was nowhere near where it is now, to where we could barely field one team. And then like there was years where we were winning the championship year after year, making good state runs. And then seeing that kind of the family atmosphere they have, see how everyone support each other. Like people were at the games, going to basketball games when I was little. That all kind of led me to go. And I knew Coach Phelps growing up because he went to school with my aunt. And I just knew I wanted that guy in my life as a coach. And he really kind of led my decision there too.
It really seems like to me, and you could correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like the coaches at St. Paul seem like they have, and I'm not saying that other schools don't have this, but it just seems like because maybe I know the coaches more just from me being around various places. It seems like they have the not just the eyes and ears of the athletes they're coaching, but it seems like they have that connection that's almost unspoken. Like you mentioned Coach Phelps. I could talk to Phelps for 5 hours, and it was the first time I talked to him, and we were on the phone forever. And I didn't even know him going in. And after the conversation, I felt like I've known him forever. I mean, did you ever kind of get that same feeling with the coaches at St. Paul when you first started?
All the coaches are great. Phelps is one of the most influential people in my life, has been since I've known him. He's more than a basketball coach to every single one of his players, whether you're here for 1 year. And I guarantee if you ask the Sacred Heart kids or even Ben that transferred in for 1 year, they're all going to say the same thing, that he loved them as a person, not just a player. And Coach Joe, I was talking to him last night at like 11:30 at night about football, college, stuff coming up this season. And he was just there to listen. Coach Kennedy and me have had a great relationship since I was a kid. His son and me have been friends forever. And so it's just different. Like obviously I've only been at St. Paul. When I'll talk to some of my other friends who are at either prep schools or other high schools, it just doesn't seem like they have that same connection with these guys.
Now, for football, did you play varsity your freshman year?
My freshman year, I was a 6'4" Bambi. I had no clue what I was doing. I was just running around, running through kids. I played special teams, and my good, really close friend Dylan Kelly was a junior on that team that had been playing football growing up. We still laugh about this to this day, is I was so nervous about messing up like the green and red calls on the punt. I used to label my hands with the colored Sharpies. And then one day, I think it might have been Crosby on our homecoming game. He looked at me and he goes, dude, you got to figure this out. And that kind of like opened my eyes to, hey, there's a playbook for a reason. And so I played JV and then like the special teams, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But it was good. And then I followed Coach Moser on the clipboard, writing down like what play, how many yards, what the result was. And that was kind of good to introduce me to like high school football,
Mm-hmm.
where some other kids out of my class have been playing since they could run.
Now, now for football, to go back to that really quick, you had three coaches, correct? Because you had the coach before Kennedy, right?
So Coach Kelly,
Yes.
I got him on his way out, but his mom was there, and you could talk to that man, another man that was not just a coach to me. Right, he talked to me after practice about how school was, and the first thing he'd say to you when you started that first day of practice, "How was your day?" And then it was just great to hear from them. And then Coach Kennedy, who was the OC there forever, he bounced around OC, DC, linebacker coach. Mm-hmm. He took the head job, and then that was the passing league when passing league was the only season we had, and he brought the juice when a lot of kids didn't want to be there. A lot of the seniors that needed to be there just because there was nothing else for them to do, and that was our last bit. He kept them through it. And then a new opportunity for his job that was really good for him and his family erupted. So he took that. And then Coach Joe took the new head coach position. Mm-hmm. And to where we are now.
Yeah, because Kennedy, if I recall, he's coaching football. I don't remember the school, but he's still, yes.
The teacher there. Mm-hmm. And he's cross coach at St. Paul. He's coaching football there, and he's doing a great job up there.
And he does lacrosse still for St. Paul, correct?
Yeah. St. Paul cross coach, luckily.
Okay, and we'll get into that in just a second. To stick with football for one more thing with Chanciola. Now, I went to school. I don't know if Chanch ever said anything, but I went to school with him way back when, and he and I, we had our little feuds because we were young. We, for whatever reason. But now, obviously, we've matured. We're better, and now I consider him a very, very good friend. and what he's done for St. Paul in just a short time he's been there.
Yeah.
What was when you met Coach Joe Chanchillo, for the first time? How was that?
So when I met him for the first time was 8th grade. He asked me, because he was the strength conditioning coach there. Frank's, this is might be his 8th year, and he
Mhm.
still does the same responsibilities before he's head coach. Like the best coach Joe story I have is my body was beat after a 3-game like in 1 week against Lacrosse, and I texted him like, "Hey, what can we do to get my body to recover with a big game coming up?" He goes, "Be at school tomorrow at 7 o'clock." He stretched me out. He rolled me out. He filled up an ice bath all before school. He got there extra early, or he'll stay after to help me stretch. Or like if say kids can't come to lift the normal lift time because of work or parents or something, he'll
Mhm.
be getting 6:30 if he has to. And so that kind of just shows how much he cares about not only the football team, but the baseball team. The baseball team, Ryan, Steve, Mario, Luca, them guys will lift before school with him or after school whenever they could fit it in around their schedule. And he's still in the dugout for baseball games. He's still at all the basketball games, girls soccer games, volleyball, you name it, he's there. He's there for everyone.
He knows his stuff. I mean, coming over from Springfield, even before that, when he was at Watertown, when he was coming through the pipeline there, I mean, he played baseball. He was a big football player. His dad was a big time football player. His dad actually played with my dad, to
His,
show our age here. What was that?
his dad's on the staff at St. Paul. He's a
Yes.
great guy, coach for defense.
Yep.
And just, I love his coaching style.
Knows his stuff. He's an old school guy. I mean, back to the days of Watertown when it was really hard nosed, but he knows
Yeah.
his stuff. And you could see why Joe is kind of that branch, because he's from him. Um,
Yes.
but I'm not surprised that Chanciola does that, the son, to be able to be there and support the programs, because he did it at Watertown. He's doing it at St. Paul, and it seems like you guys really appreciate that. And that's great to hear. To go to the basketball side, back to Phelps for a second. Um, the program has had such and I feel like it doesn't get talked about, and I don't know why. And I've asked certain people questions, and they haven't been able to give me 100% answers. I feel like the amount of consistency the Falcons have had getting to the playoffs. Now, I know the rings may not be there. Getting by the first couple rounds has been difficult, but just to be a consistent winner every single year when NVL basketball, regardless of how you view it, as far as being maybe not the FCAC and such, still produces good teams. You have Naugatuck, Sacred Heart before they close, the Crosbys, occasionally you get some other teams popping in. But the point is, St. Paul basketball is good, and I feel like it deserves way more credit than a lot of people that don't give it credit for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And we like look at it as upperclassmen, our younger classmen, me and Jamie, kind of could, when Noah was a senior, because he was a senior our freshman year, him, AJ Brooks, Rudy, they all kind of showed us where we needed to be. And then Will, his senior, when me and Jamie were sophomores, he kind of influenced us on there. And that was when we kind of took a step into like a leadership role almost, because it was a close-knit team because of COVID. So we were a small group together all the time, and that was a great group of guys. And then not only Coach Phelps, but we have, I think, the best coaching staff in the whole state, and I'll put money on that. Between the experience, the energy, we have Coach Vaz, who I think if he wanted to could be a head coach in Connecticut or anywhere. And he's not only a really good coach, I talk to him pretty much every day, whether it's not basketball season or it is basketball season. He was one of the first people to text me on my birthday along with Phelps. Phelps calls you on your birthday. He doesn't do the birthday text. I get a call from him at like 7 o'clock on my way to school. Happy birthday. Thinking about you. And then Coach Lodovico, another great basketball mind, who he balances having 2 daughters, and he's there when he can. He'll come from his daughter's game at Bristol Central to Derby, then back to Bristol. Like, he does it all. We have Coach Bone, who'll be one night in Granby scouting for playoffs, and the next night in Norwalk or Bridgeport. And that kind of just, for how much they do for us, the least we can do is be consistent and show up every day and attack it like it could be our last, because that was our motto with COVID. This could be our last day. This could be our last practice. And I think even before COVID, everyone was like, there's always something to prove at St. Paul. We're always just going to be the Catholic school kids. And then playing in the NVL is always going to be what we can prove that night. We're going to be hated no matter where we go, what time we're playing. We take everything we can, put a chip on our shoulder. And I
Does
think
it
that kind of the consistency that you're asking about.
does it bother you at all? Because I see it in football. It's not talked about as much in basketball, but it's more so football and even baseball too. When you see the whole debate with the the Twitter warriors, I like to call them that, where they want to debate school of choice, versus the public schools. And I'm not saying all people are the Twitter warriors, because a lot of people bring up good points on both sides. It's a very highly debated topic, and it's one of those things I don't get paid enough to be able to talk about it. So I like the other people's point of view. Is it hard when you're at a school of choice, you and the rest of your teammates, and you see that, because you guys are on social media, people talk, you hear it. It's hard not to hear it. Is it hard to kind of steer away from it? Because I know certain times you want to react, but then like almost like think before you press send. Like, do I want to say that? Do I not want to? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think it's hard because of the fact that I could be from Maryland going to school in Bristol, but the kid from Naugatuck goes to Naugatuck is still tying his shoes the same way I do. Maybe my car ride's a little bit longer than his, but we're both 17, 15, however old we both are. Whether he's from Naugatuck, Waterbury, Norwalk, we woke up, we both ate breakfast, went to school, did our 6 classes or whatever. And sure, maybe I'm paying for school if he's going to public school, but we're both there for a reason. He's at his public school because that's the best fit for him. I'm at St. Paul because it's the best fit for me. So like people are always going to say, oh, public schools shouldn't be competing against private schools, but that's just an excuse. And a lot of the kids at St. Paul don't like to look at them as excuses, where if we can go beat a public school, then I don't see a problem with that because we're still on our schedule. It's nothing against them or anyone, but
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's highly debated, and again, I could see both sides, and you make a very good point as far as I think some people forget the athletes themselves, the student athletes are choosing to go there for a reason. I think some people forget that. The lacrosse side, and I've been looking forward to talking about this with you because I know that's something that the game of lacrosse has been growing in Connecticut, and I really have noticed it over the last few years how big the sport is becoming. I mean, I've noticed it on ESPN. They're showing it way more. Talk to me about Coach Kennedy, because I've had him on here once. The guy is fantastic. What is he meant? I could see that smile. What is he
yeah.
meant to you for lacrosse? Because, like you said, for football, he'll challenge you. He's another hard-nosed kind of coach, but I feel like deep down, he's a little soft. Like he loves everybody, kind of like Coach Phelps and all the other coaches at St. Paul.
He's definitely got a different way of showing it, but he's 2 different coaches for me for lacrosse football. Football, my freshman year, he was kind of just teaching me the game and kind of put a little care into that because he knew I was raw and didn't really know much. But lacrosse, coming into the program, he had a lot of expectations for me, like to live up to. And then my freshman year, obviously, we didn't have a season. And that team would have been scary if we did have a season. We had a lot of good older guys and a lot of good young guys who had a lot of potential. And so then my sophomore year, that senior class was the St. Paul lacrosse senior class. They took the program over the next level, where it was Bryson, Connor, Christian, all those guys. Nick Jackson was a 1-year guy from Northwest who came in. Josh Konikowski, Dylan Kelly, all those guys took that program to the next level and really kind of, along with Coach Kennedy, kind of helped me fill into the high school lacrosse role. Our first game went down to Shelton, and Coach Kennedy talked to me. He was like, just play lacrosse. It's just another game. Because I was a little nervous. And he just told me, just play lacrosse. You're just going to have fun. It's a game you love. Just have fun. Same thing. Connor Matthews and Dylan Kelly both took me before the game, and they just told me it's just a game. Just have fun and do what you got to do.
Do you feel like playing the multiple sports as you have, especially being at the varsity level, from the time when you were playing all three sports, are playing all three sports, do you feel like it's kind of helped calm your nerves a little bit because you've now been around the amount of minutes or starts at the varsity level when you combine football, basketball, and lacrosse is definitely, I think, a huge positive as far as being able to really kind of show not just what you can do on the field, but also the maturity off the field.
I definitely think that helps. I still get so nervous for some games, depending on the situations and like what's at stake. But I kind of look at it as I'm just playing a game I love, and I get at least one more day of playing that game, whether that's a playoff game, a practice, or anything like that. And obviously, like say you're guarding a big recruit in lacrosse or playing a big football team or it's an important basketball game, obviously be a little nerves there. But all coaches have different ways of approaching it, but all know how to settle us because they've been around high school kids all their career. And so obviously the nerves are still there sometimes. but I can kind of like rechannel them into positive energy and
Mhm.
kind of just play hard, play fast, and have fun.
You're going to be a senior in just a few months as far as the beginning of your senior year. Currently, right now, you're doing lacrosse in the summer. And then, as you mentioned before we started this, that Chanciola, Coach Chanciola, Joe Chanciola, the head coach for St. Paul, is giving you workouts to do just to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So when you do come back to focus strictly on football, that it won't take long for you to be able to transition back into football in that side. Um, Now I know the football team last year, it was a tough season. I did one of the games. It was a very young team, I felt like, and also too a first year head coach. And I'm pretty sure he came in a little bit late, so trying to get acclimated with everything in too. I have a pretty strong feeling that this season's going to be a lot different for a multitude of reasons. What are your thoughts on that?
Last year was a learning experience, and I've heard the word rebuilding. I hate that word in sports. I think it's one of the most annoying things to hear. It wasn't a rebuilding year; it was just a building year. We returned one kid with varsity experience, Isaiah, who was one of our running backs and our corners. And obviously, him and the other seniors are going. We had a lot of good seniors last year, but we were returning our whole O line, a lot of our secondary on defense, our receiving core is all back, and we're definitely going to be a little different looking team this year, obviously. And I think we'll make some noise with a lot of our young guys who have been putting in a lot of work. We've got a lot of freshmen and sophomores who are coming back as juniors and sophomores who are hungry and don't want to go 2-8 again, and a lot of seniors who don't want to go out 2-8. So I think we'll be a different team this year.
Is there any did Coach Chanciola talk to you guys before the summer started? Like, did he get everybody together?
We had a meeting close to the last day of school with all the guys.
Okay. Mhm.
And it was a good meeting. Good to get everyone in the room again. Obviously, you see them on the halls, but with a lot of our coaching staff there, it was good to kind of talk about our goals and stuff and kind of put the past season behind us.
Is there anything in particular that I know it's too early to say, okay, do you guys have a motto, but is there anything? I know you mentioned how we're not going 2-8 again. Is that going to be kind of the reminder, during a tough practice? Because there will be those, especially with this heat. And you may have some guys saying, hey, I can't do this. And you just maybe have to say, hey, we're not going 2-8 again. That could be kind of the motivation. Am I wrong there?
Coach Joe's new motto he gave us at the start of his PowerPoint is "Be the hammer, not the nail," and I think that can definitely boost a lot of our guys, a lot of our young guys that might not be like used to the high school football environment
Mhm.
of just there's a reason we're here. And if a lot of coaches say if it was easy, everyone would do it. But when it's hot, it's going to be thinking about we had a goal line stand game last year, and if we didn't work as hard in practice, we might not have won that game.
Mhm.
Or stuff like that, and just kind of build off of that to where if we do an extra rep full speed compared to half speed, how that's going to impact us on a game. Because if you're cheating in practice, you're going to cheat in the game.
I have to admit, man, I think, and I know the Copper division's very good because you've got the Ansonias, the Seymour quarterback, Drezick is back. I think Oxford's going to be good. Derby will be interesting just because a new coach and a young team and such. Um, but I think the Iron division is very interesting because obviously Naugatuck is there. They return everybody for the most part. Watertown's always competitive, as Joe would know, especially being on the team for the years he was there, in high school. And then we've got and then Woolkit and then Torrington. Torrington was, I think, one game away from getting to the championship, maybe two. I have to go back and look. But the point is, the Iron Division's very good. And if you can come out of that division strong, that I think will give you guys a good indicator of where you are as far as how much work, all the stuff you're putting in now will show in those games.
I 100% agree. Obviously, so our schedule's a little different this year. I think they got rid of the divisions. I think it's two big divisions because we don't play Naugatuck or Torrington this year, or
Really?
we'll. And so we're playing a lot of the farther away schools like the Woodlands, the Seymours, the Derbys, the Oxfords, and the new school that merged in to kind of replace Sacred Heart in the football aspect. That's our Thanksgiving game now instead of Oxford. And they were a good team last year too. They were a Class S playoff team, I think, maybe
Mm-hmm.
M, but they were in the playoffs. And those are all good games that if we can go on the road and protect home and get some wins down there, that's all we can ask for, is just to win games and have fun.
And the new team you're talking about is Gilbert Northwestern. They were originally in the Pequot, which the Pequot had a lot of good teams. I mean, Granby Canton Co-op, Gilbert Northwestern. You had Rockville. There was a couple other teams. Stratford was also in.
Oregon,
Yes, Morgan as well. Morgan had the tall quarterback. Speaking of height for you, the
Coach
tall.
Kennedy in there.
Yep, exactly. But it's going to be one of those things, man, where I think I can't wait for football to get back. I know you can't wait either, but you have lacrosse as well to kind of, prepare for that. Now,
Yeah,
before I let you go, Erik, um, you and I were discussing as far as where you could potentially be as far as after St. Paul in college. I know football and lacrosse are the two. How difficult is it to kind of know that you may have to pick one? Hopefully, you can do both. Hopefully, that's there.
it's definitely an interesting thing to think about. Like the fact that this coming up spring lacrosse season can be my last like real lacrosse season,
Hmm.
or my last football season. And like me and my parents talk about it all the time. Like it's not about the level you're playing at, as long as you're playing a sport you love for the next few years. And obviously, the higher level you can play at, the best. Like that just sounds like a great time. And that's like kind of my mindset right now is just finding a place where I can get my degree and just kind of have a life after sports because sports can only last so long, but also play sports and see how far that can take me. Because hopefully, maybe even after college in some sort of format. But stuff like that's always kind of in my mind. I'm just kind of bouncing around through there.
Was the quote that I used to, where I always say, especially in conversations like this, we're all too old to play a child's game. So at some point, we have to be able to figure out what's our second career. I'm grateful enough to have my full-time job and be able to broadcast, which is fantastic. I love doing it. And then if you ever decide you want to come back to St. Paul, I got a seat open for you for basketball if you want to come by, or even football too, always.
No, I'll hopefully get back to the St. Paul community in some sort of way when I'm gone. It's kind of been a lot for me. Like it's real family atmosphere. Like I met some of my best friends. I've had friends going in. Like me and Matt Palmieri and Ryan Daniels all went to middle school together, and now we're all still great friends. I was at graduation with them. I was supporting Ryan at his game. Me and Matt were front row at the Summers game, having a good time. And it just kind of shows like the nest. Like I think the nest gets talked about a lot, and that's because of how the family atmosphere is. And it could be a girls' basketball game in Newtown, where the state semifinals were, where I think we probably had 100 kids there out of a 400 kid school. That's pretty impressive in my eyes. And it was an hour away from our school. Like kids were packing in the cars. Like it was blue out, blue face paint, blue everything to support our girls' team. Or if it's a home lacrosse game or a away baseball game, like everyone just kind of gets out. And that's like the thing I want to keep going. Where I don't want that to let die out, especially my last year there.
Mm-hmm.
And so Matt and me had talked about like how we can keep it going and stuff. And now Matt obviously just graduated, so now like me and some other buddies are trying to keep it going. And that's kind of the biggest thing I want to keep going is like how the family atmosphere at St. Paul is and how the culture is in the whole school.
I don't doubt that one bit that you're going to, keep it going. I think you will keep it going, especially, with you being so tall. Be like, just follow me, follow the big guy. But Erik, again, great to be able to have you on here. This was a lot of fun. Whenever you make your decision as far as where you go to school, hopefully you'll want to come back on here. But hopefully, if the schedule that I forwarded is accepted, that I can at least get one to possibly two St. Paul football games on the air, because it will be a lot of fun being able to see the Falcons, who I think will have a much better season this year than last year. And I told Chance that, and if he forgot, I'll tell him again. I think St. Paul will be better this year. I do believe that.
We all know it, and we'll be better this year.
Erik, again, great to be able to have you I'll be saying during the broadcast, Suze. I'll be saying that quite a bit, hopefully.
Yeah. Thank you. It's good to be on.
No problem. I'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Mark Joey. Find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.